Good evening, everyone.
I only buy coconuts from country reply because they promise around 300.
I hope I'm audible properly. The sounds and everything are coming properly. I'm expecting this. Okay, so today we are going to have a session basically on framing of answer, history optional paper one. This is the objective that we do have today, right? So since last couple of days I had been having I'm having so many sessions, and these sessions are on different topics. So in past few classes, I have just tried to understand about various things. I've just tried to make you understand about various things that included, let's say, the way we need to understand history. What is the importance of concepts in history, how to approach paper one, how to approach paper two, right? All these things, we just try to have a session on map also, but unfortunately that could not be done, complete that could not be completed due to some technical issues. So I'll just come up with another session on map portion. So this is how I have been just trying to discuss about almost all every possible dimension, which are possible, which are true for most of the optional papers, and same is true for history optional paper also. So of course, when it comes to history, that should be treated differently, and this is the reason because of what I have it is necessary to know that in what way we are supposed to tackle this particular paper, right? So you can't treat all the papers similarly. So when it comes to history optional paper, there is a different kind of requirement this paper does have. तो जिस तरीके से मैंने ये कहा कि आपको अलग अलग पेपर्स में आपको अलग अलग तरीके से चीज़ें हैंडल करनी पड़ती हैं, ठीक है? सो वी हैव टू समहाउ ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट कि हिस्ट्री में उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है, उसमें जो है अप्रोच कैसे करना है हमें, ठीक है? मैप को कैसे अप्रोच करना है, पेपर वन को कैसे अप्रोच करना है, पेपर टू को कैसे अप्रोच करना है, और हर पेपर में हमारी अप्रोच जो है अलग होगी. हो सकता है ये जो अप्रोच जो हम हिस्ट्री में फॉलो कर रहे हैं, ये ज़रूरी नहीं कि पॉलिटिकल साइंस में भी हम ऐसा ही अप्रोच फॉलो करें, या पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में हम ऐसा ही अप्रोच फॉलो करें. सो दैट्स नॉट नेसेसरी. सो as I did tell you that in every part we have to deal in every area, in every, let's say, subject, we have to deal it differently, right? So I'll just come to the topic, but before I come to the topic, let me tell you that there are few things that we have to, there are few let's say upcoming courses that we have to see. So these are basically the upcoming courses, and these slides are there. And in fact, you can take admission in all these courses which are either which have been announced, or this is test series for most of the optional papers. We have just come up with a kind of test series, so you can definitely attend those test series. These are the optional batches which have started recently on few optional papers started on 8, and the few optional papers started on 4th of 15th of December. These are certain optional papers. These are few batches. Okay, fine. So these are few things. These informations were important. I just tried to pass on these information. Now coming to the let's say main topic of ours, and our topic is basically framing the answers. Got it? So we are just going to see somehow how to frame the answers. How to frame the answers. This is the main idea, right? So let's say framing the answers. Got my point? This is for history optional paper 1. History optional paper 1, right? Now here I would like to make one thing very clear. The way I did tell you that more or less the process of completing any optional paper is very much similar, like ultimately you have to go, you have to read, you have to go for the content. like first आपको कंटेंट कवर करना है, कंटेंट कवर करने के बाद आपको क्या करना होता है कि फिर उसको एक कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी भी उसके साथ चाहिए. तो जब आप कंटेंट की बात करते हैं तो एट वन हैंड देयर इज कंसेप्ट, ऑन द अदर हैंड देयर आर सर्टेन फैक्ट्स, राइट. सो दैट्स हाउ यू जस्ट कवर द सिलेबस, बट दिस इज ओनली द बिगिनिंग पार्ट, और दिस इज लेट्स से this is just the beginning part. This is how you initiate. But after doing this, after covering the content also, you need to get into several areas. You need to get into several areas such as, let's say, when it comes to understanding the subject. So I think only the understanding part and the facts cannot get you through. Rather, you have to understand the actual demand or the requirement, and that you can understand through the previous year papers and all other things. So this is how you over the period try to get the requirements, that these are the requirements, right? This is one thing. And then finally it comes to the answer writing. So whatever you have gathered, either it is about information or it is about concept, ultimately you need to produce them in the answer script, right? Because the thing that you convey to the evaluator on the basis of what you are getting marks, that is the script, that is the basically answers that you have written, and the answers that you have written in your script, ultimately this is what conveys everything, and you have been getting all the marks on the basis of that. This is the reason because of what answers are very important. Suppose you do have a very good understanding over the subject, but unfortunately if you are not able to write a proper answer on that, in that case I think it is completely useless. And when it comes to answer writing, there also you need to keep in mind one thing, that it is not only about writing the answers, but you need to understand that within 3 hours you need to write 18, 19 or let's say 20 answers. So when it comes to writing so many answers within that limited 3 hours, and in fact practically speaking you are not even getting the 3 hours. अगर आप, मैं बात करूं कि आपको पूरा 3 घंटा मिलता है या नहीं, पूरा इतना वक्त इतना नहीं मिलता है आपको, आप सभी को समझना चाहिए कि प्रैक्टिकली स्पीकिंग आपको काफ़ी कम वक्त वहाँ पे मिल पाता है. लेकिन उस वक्त में आप कैसे उन आंसर्स को लिखते हैं, बिकॉज जब आपके पास काफ़ी वक्त होता है तो ऐसे में आप अपने आंसर्स को प्रॉपरली अरेंज कर सकते हैं, उसको प्रॉपरली स्ट्रक्चराइज कर सकते हैं, आप उसके डायमेंशंस को सोच सकते हैं कि अच्छा मुझे इस डायमेंशन के बारे में लिखना है, फिर इसके बारे में लिखना है. आप इंट्रोडक्शन और कंक्लूजन को अच्छे से प्लान कर सकते हैं. ये सारी लग्जरी आपके पास होती है. लेकिन जब आपको एक लिमिटेड वक्त में आपको इतने सारे आंसर्स लिखने होते हैं, उस समय हमारे पास इतना वक्त नहीं होता है कि हम उन आंसर्स को बहुत अच्छे से फ्रेम कर सके, हम उनको बहुत अच्छे से स्ट्रक्चराइज कर सके, या फिर हम उसके कंटेंट को रिकॉल कर सके. वी आर नॉट हैविंग दैट मच टाइम. That's the reason, because of what you have to, let's say, you have to be very conscious as far as this answer writing is concerned. Got my point? And this is not going to happen in one day. If you believe that this is going to happen in just one day, मतलब आपने एक दिन में उसकी तैयारी की और उसके बाद मतलब आपने कंटेंट पढ़ा और आप फिर जो है एग्जामिनेशन हॉल में सीधा जाके आप आंसर्स लिख देंगे, इसकी संभावना थोड़ी कम होती है. ठीक है, I personally speaking, I do not find any possibility of that, and that's why I think since beginning, the day like you have started your preparation, from that day only you should be focused even on answer writing, okay? How to frame the answers. Every topic that you have been reading, you should start framing the questions by your own. Like you should start framing the answers. You can frame the questions that have been asked in previous years, and that's how you might have a kind of regular practice on that, and this practice can really get you perfect. So these are the things that you have to go for regularly. That's how you're going to do it. But when it comes to this importance of answers, when I am telling you that the answers are so important, because through the answers only you ultimately convey your ideas, you convey everything to the evaluator, and that's the reason you should be very particular. Now when it comes to history optional, you cannot treat to all the questions in paper 1 and paper 2 similarly. अगर आप पेपर 1 के क्वेश्चंस को जिस तरीके से डील करते हैं या जिस तरीके के कंटेंट उसमें आप लिखते हैं, अगर वैसे ही कंटेंट आप पेपर 2 में लिखते हैं तो शायद ये इतना जो है आपके लिए फ्रूटफुल नहीं हो. ठीक है, इसी वजह से आप जब पेपर 1 में आंसर्स लिखते हैं तो उसको अलग तरीके से सेव करना होता है. पेपर 2 में जब आप आंसर्स लिखते हैं तो वो अलग तरीके से सेव करना होता है. ठीक है, now the point is that what are the things which are basically required? What are the things basically which are required? What are the things which are basically required? So the first thing that I'll say, that while writing the answers you need to focus on the content. Okay, there should be a kind of content with you. Now when it comes to content, again here I must say again here I must say that content, while collecting the content, you should be very particular of, right, that what kind of content you have been collecting. Now there is ample amount of content around you, आपके पास बहुत सारा कंटेंट है, बट उस कंटेंट को आपको मिनिमाइज करना है, ठीक है, उस कंटेंट को आपको मिनिमाइज करना है, बिकॉज इफ योर कंटेंट इज रियली मिनिमाइज, इन दैट केस you'll go for, you'll be able to go for much amount of, like say, or multiple revision. And revision is something which is really keeping you highly disciplined, or let's say very organized. If you haven't done great amount, like numbers of revisions, in that case you might get confusion in the examination hall, and that you need to avoid that confusion. आप उसको avoid करिए पूरी तरीके से. You just avoid it, avoid it completely, because if, like, there is no clarity while writing the, writing the paper, writing the answers, in that case it's going to consume much of your time. It's going to, let's say, it's not going to be very structurized. So these are the problems. So while reading the content, you have to understand one thing, okay, the content should be minimized, the content should be less, there should be more revision, and that's why you have to understand the requirements, like, requirements very properly, ki, okay, these are the dimensions. Because let's say, if we'll talk about history, so in history you won't find that every topic that has been given in the syllabus, they all are not very important. Rather, on some occasions you'll find they are important, or let's say some topics which are very important, regularly the questions are being asked on them. So that's what you need to, keep in mind. So while doing the syllabus, try to go through the previous year questions, specifically those which have been, asked in last 10 years, because that's getting you a kind of, very good idea on that. ठीक है, आपको ये बताती हैं कि इस तरीके से आप चीजें कर सकते हैं, ठीक है, या किन टॉपिक्स पे आप ज्यादा फोकस कर सकते हैं. तो एक तो सबसे पहली बात कि आपका कंटेंट जो है वो बहुत शॉर्ट होना चाहिए, मिनिमम होना चाहिए, और आप ये R&D पहले से कर लें कि किन एरियाज पे रेगुलर क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, कहाँ से पॉसिबिलिटीज ज्यादा हैं. बिकॉज अगर आपने ये फिगर आउट कर लिया तो आपका कंटेंट थोड़ा कम हो जाएगा. सो पहला डायमेंशन तो ये है, ठीक है, तो ये भी एक आंसर राइटिंग का ही पार्ट है. द सेकेंड थिंग, like the second thing is very important, that you should always include your answer, like this is about the keywords, ठीक है, this is about the keyword. Whenever you have been writing answers, the keywords are very important in your answers, because the evaluation to a greater extent is done on the basis of the keywords that you have included. Every answer that you do right, like, every topic that you have been targeting in your answers does have some keywords, right? The keywords, like in paper 1 there are different keywords, in topic wise the keywords might change in fact, ठीक है. तो ये जो keywords होते हैं, इनका inclusion आंसर में बहुत जरूरी है कि अगर आप जो है कीवर्ड्स को एक जगह अरेंज करके रखते हैं, या उसको जैसे हर टॉपिक के आप जब नोट्स बनाते हैं तो उसके कीवर्ड्स एक बॉक्स में अगर कहीं लिख लेते हैं, तो उससे आपको बहुत फ़ायदा मिलेगा, क्योंकि इस तरीके से वो चीज़ें आपके दिमाग में रहती है कि अच्छा ये सारे कीवर्ड्स हैं जो मुझे डालने हैं, ठीक है. तो आप फिर उससे क्या हो जाता है कि बहुत आसानी से आप उन कीवर्ड्स को वहाँ पर आप लिख सकते हैं, ठीक है. सो ऑलवेज बी वेरी पर्टिकुलर अबाउट द कीवर्ड्स, दैट्स द सेकेंड थिंग, राइट. Now the third thing, like, third thing is about the structure of the answer, that how you are going to write the answer. That's another thing. So basically I'll go to like the next page to discuss about this. So when it comes to the answers, like, so basically in every answer, as you do know that there are three parts, okay. What are these three parts? One which is known as, like, introduction. One which is known as introduction. The second which is known as body, and the third which is known as conclusion. So in every answer, generally speaking, there are three parts, and when you have been writing answers for paper 1, you have to be like, when I have been writing answers for paper 1, now there is a specific kind of answers or introduction, body and conclusion you are supposed to write. Like as far as body is concerned, there are different requirements. उसकी जो है उसकी जो है वो अलग है, ठीक है. उसकी just a second, उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट अलग है, ठीक है. बॉडी की हम बॉडी पे बात करेंगे. सबसे पहले हम इंट्रोडक्शन पे बात कर लेते हैं. When you are supposed to write so many answers in limited time, and then writing introduction sometimes becomes highly problematic. That's applicable to paper 1 and paper 2 also. मतलब that problem वाला part, like, because this is a common tendency of the people, that like when you write the first line, you are thinking a lot. आप बहुत ज़्यादा सोचते हैं कि पहली जो लाइन है वो इतनी इम्प्रेसिव होनी चाहिए कि पहली लाइन इतनी इम्प्रेसिव होनी चाहिए कि इवैल्यूएटर उसको देखने के बाद वो इम्प्रेस हो जाए. I think by doing such kind of things, you are just wasting your time. The questions may not come exactly the way you have prepared. Okay, that's the reason because of what you should be open to the questions. Yes, the topics may be repeated. So one thing you can do, that you can actually like as per the topic, you can make some sort of conclusions in the beginning or in advance. So sorry, some sort of introduction in the advance. That possibility is there. But the way they have been hunting many new dimensions in paper one, that's why it might not work on many occasions. The second suggestion that I'll be giving you, that's an idea which can be applied everywhere, that you can apply a filter while writing the answer in paper one, such as any question has been asked on Indus Valley civilization. While the question has been asked on Indus Valley civilization, what you are supposed to do, you just start with a with a broader feature. We start your answer with a broader feature of Indus Valley civilization and narrow it down to, let's say, in question. When it comes to, let's say, Indus Valley civilization, so what dimension has been, let's say, the question is asking about the political, let's say, political feature of the political condition of Indus Valley civilization. The question is based on the political structure of Indus Valley civilization. Now you are thinking how to start the answers. I have noticed that most of the students are starting their answers with directly with the political dimension. That is not the right way of writing the writing or the framing the answers. What you are supposed to do, first you write or give a brief introduction of Indus Valley civilization. That Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization was the first Bronze Age civilization in Indian subcontinent, which could be noticed between, or the mature phase of this could be noticed between 2600 to 1900 BC. And this was spread, this particular civilization was spread in Pakistan, then Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, and so on, right? So you have just written 2 or 3 lines. In those 2 or 3 lines, you have included most of the important features, right? That it is Bronze Age civilization, urban civilization, right? Spread, the time period, right? That's how you have just written about, or you have somehow included most of the basic features of Indus Valley civilization. And then you'll be writing because of the great amount of uniformity, or let's say the vastness or the level of urbanization, it is always believed that there must be a very developed political structure existing in Harappan civilization. That's it, right? So you just wrote 2 or 3 lines, and by writing those 2 or 3 lines, you have just narrowed it down to the exact requirement. But you have started with a broader introduction of Indus Valley civilization. Now the person who does not know even about Indus Valley civilization, he or she must have realized that, okay, this is what called as Indus Valley civilization, and then you just came to that dimension which is actually required to know, right? So that's how it is the best idea of writing the answers specifically in paper 1. In paper 2 it must be different. I told you, I must tell you that paper 2 it might be different. So what you have done, you have just narrowed it down to this dimension, and then that's how your introduction is done. So never ever try to do much experiments with the introduction in at least paper 1. So that is not permissible here. That's how you're just done with this part. Now moving to the next part. Now body. Now when you write the answers in history, this is again generally applicable. It's not necessary that the body is having only one dimension, or body is having just one part. In history, sometimes you'll find that the body is having 2 parts or even more than 2 parts. It is all depending on the nature of the topic. Let's say there might be sometimes you need to write the one sort of arguments, then you need to write about the counter arguments also. It is very much possible that there are some other arguments that have been also given, and that's how there might be many parts. So if the body is having just one part, or let's say more than one part, that you need to arrange in a proper order. And in fact, you start with that idea which you wanted to basically, which is sounding, let's say, lesser important. And if it is, you really need to reach to a conclusion, if you really need to reach to a conclusion, in that case, you just keep that part towards the end. Because if you are keeping it towards the end, in that case, what's going to happen? In that case, you are just going to easily conclude your answer. So these are certain things that should be kept in mind, that don't start with that part which is the most important dimension. This is how you're going to conclude. So you just divide your answer into certain parts. Got my point? Now, the another question which does come to me very frequently, that whether you should go for the point format or let's say paragraph format, right? Now, this is a very subjective sort of thing. If your no, if your speed really allows you to go or to write the answers in a subjective form, in that case, go for it. There is no problem. But the best way of structuring the answer would be that after writing the introduction, and the introduction should be always in paragraph format, right? So never ever write it in a in point format. So introduction should be always in paragraph format, and then it comes to body. Now in body part, you can really write, let's say, in both the ways. You can mix both the style. Okay, now I think it's fixed now. No. All right. Okay. So yes, right. Coming back to the point, right? So yes. So you need to arrange the points in a right way, right? You cannot write the points in a very haphazard manner. The which are lesser important, you have been putting them in the front, right? Those which are more important, you are just putting that towards the end when you are writing these points. So there, these structures are, let's say, these structures really matter, and that's why try to arrange them in a proper way. That's the next thing that you have to keep in mind in the body part. Then I did tell you about certain keywords. So now these keywords are really very important, and it should be fit either in the introduction or conclusion, or let's say the body part. Wherever it is getting fit, you need to fit the keywords. These are very important because while evaluating the script, they are mostly focusing on these keywords, and that's why you keep in mind these keywords are very important. So that's why you just try to include them desperately in your answer. That is another suggestion that you have to keep in mind, right? Then dealing with some specific parts for paper 1. The paper 1, you should keep in mind, is more conceptual, right? Paper 1 is as compared to compared to paper 2, it's more conceptual. And that's why in paper 2 it is always expected from you to be more conceptual and less factual, right? So always try to incorporate some sort of concept in your answers rather than only putting, let's say, the facts. I have noticed with many students that they have been primarily focusing on the facts because they do believe that history is all about the collection of facts. That's the reason because of what they have been doing it. अगर आप सिर्फ और सिर्फ फैक्ट्स को यहाँ पे रखेंगे तो फिर जो है पेपर 1 की सोल जो है या उसकी आत्मा जो है वो मर जाती है. पेपर 1 के क्वेश्चंस भी जो है वो बड़े कंसेप्चुअल होते हैं, एंड इनफैक्ट इट इज गिविंग यू द स्कोप टू राइट इट इन सच ए वे दैट यू कैन रियली एक्सप्रेस और शो सम सॉर्ट ऑफ conceptual clarity over the subject, and that's why you just try to include the concepts in your answer. These are really very important, right? So paper answers in paper 1 should be highly conceptual, and in fact, as I did tell you that in most of the times it is actually expecting from you to be more conceptual. So go for it, right? Write it in such a way that it's it can really express the concepts, like it can really express the concepts. So try to be more conceptual here. Now when you are writing the concepts, like, it does not mean at all that you are avoiding the facts, but there should not be any bombarding of facts. Okay, sometimes you see, as I told you, that inclusion of more facts, you find that this is the beauty of answer. That's not the beauty of answer. Ultimately the concepts are the most important thing, and these concepts should be associated with some sort of facts which can really, let's say, make your arguments valid, make your arguments solid. This is the importance of it. So there should be some amount of facts, कुछ जो है संख्या में facts होनी चाहिए, but वो concepts को जहां तक support करते हैं उतनी ही मात्रा में आपको जो है facts चाहिए, उससे ज्यादा की जरूरत नहीं है ना. तो concepts जो है primarily important, then it comes to facts in order to support your concept. That is the another thing, ठीक है. And in fact, as I told you, that mostly the questions are analytical, and that's why you're getting ample opportunity to show your concepts here. And if you're not if you're not able to show your concept in paper 1, in that case you won't be expecting good amount of marks in paper 1. That is another idea that you have to keep in mind, right? Moving to next, that is about the historiography, right? Now this is also one problematic part for the students, that whether they do not understand that historiography should be included or not. Now again, there might be two ways of interpreting it. Either you are supposed to include historiography, or you are not supposed to include historiography. There are two dimensions. but I think it is not correct. That uh, it is mandatory, it is necessary, इसकी जरूरत है, बट इसकी जरूरत वहां है जहां पे डिबेट है, ठीक है. There are certain questions which are purely debate, right, which are purely debate, such as if you have been discussing about the, let's say, political structure of Harappan civilization. Now this is a debate among historians. If you talk about, let's say, if you talk about, let's say, the nature of modern state, right? Again, this is a debate. There are some aspects of ancient India which are known for the debate. If you are writing any answer on debate, in that case, historiography is necessary. Now, when historiography is like, if you are not asking any answer which is not exactly related to debate, in that case you can really avoid these kind of historiography, or you can really avoid the historiography. So the areas where the debate, or the topics where the debate, these topics are known for the debate, I think there you must include the debates, because debates and historiography, because you cannot mention the debate without this historiography. But there are some dimensions where there is no debate as such. Where the debate is not there, historiography is not very important, and that's the reason, because of because of what you can exclude the historiography from these places. Now, when historiography is necessary, when you need to discuss about the historiography, to what extent you should go for it. Now, sometimes when you read the text, you will find ample number of historians. ठीक है, बहुत बड़ी संख्या में या बहुत सारे historians के नाम है. तो एक सबसे बड़ी समस्या ये भी होती है कि हम उसको याद कैसे करें, ठीक है, how to memorize them. Because when you have been doing history in your graduation, then you have been dedicating 3 years to your graduation, and then you are able to recall it because you have been doing it for a longer period of time. You have been going for multiple revisions and all. But once you have been preparing the optional, so I think the whole history of India you need to read, not only the history of India, but also you need to read the history of the world also within, let's say, 6 months, 8 months, or max to max 1 year, 1.5 years. So within this much time, it's almost all impossible to remember the name of all the historians. Now, when it comes to historiography, I think first you need to see them, right? First you need to see them in terms of school, rather than in terms of, like, first you need to see them in terms of school rather than directly the names of historians, right? So the moment you started understanding the schools, right, or let's say the various classification of historiography, basically, so if you remember them in terms of school, so your job will be slightly easy. Then you can divide the arguments on the basis of school, like if it is possible, go for it. Or else what you can do, or else you can do one more thing, that instead of remembering the name of all the historians, you just remember, like, of course you'll find, let's say, 4 important dimensions are there of any topic. So there might be, like, 4 dimensions, like there are 4 dimensions. Now in every dimension, it is very much possible that more than one historian is there. So instead of remembering the name of all historians, like for 4 dimensions, you just try to remember one historian for each dimension, one historian for each dimension. That's it. And then you can write that so and so and others, so and so and others. That's how you can write it. So now always remember one thing: the arguments are more important rather than the name of historians. You are getting marks basically for putting the arguments, but if you are putting or including the name of historians, that's definitely making it more very important. But like only by putting so many names, or by including so many names, if you think that you are going to, let's say, you are going to get very good marks, that is not the reality. So just very clear cut suggestion is there, that whenever it comes to debate, try to include the historiography. If it is a simple straightforward question, you can avoid it. When you are dealing with the debate, so while reading the content, you have to keep in mind, okay, there are 4 dimensions, there are 3 dimensions. For every group, like for every, let's say, dimension, you need to just remember 1 or 2 names of historians, and that's going to work. And that's how you're just going to write here, write this part here. Got it? Now it comes to another dimension, and that's about, let's say, the ancient Indian. When you have been writing the ancient Indian history, always remember in the body part, like I know I had been discussing about body, let me write it here that there should not be any confusion. In the body part, in ancient Indian history, the questions are always let's say connecting, like questions are connecting from, let's say, like questions are connecting 2 different periods. Let's say good evening. Let's say when it comes to ancient part, I always used to tell you, in fact, while having the session on approach to paper 1, I did tell you that you have been covering a longer period. In longer period, we primarily focus on the changes and continuity, and that's why you need to retain this particular thing while writing the answers here as well, right? You need to retain the things even here also. You have to focus more on continuity and change wala dimension. Okay? So if the question is directly asking about the continuity and change, in that case you are compelled to show that. If the question is not directly about asking about it, even though you try to retain some elements of continuity and change in your answer. So whenever you have been comparing, right, two different period, like two different period or two different phases, always go for this continuity and change, that from one period to another period, whether the changes have happened or let's say some amount of continuity is there. So basically the elements of continuity and change you should try to retain in your answers desperately, like of course if it is permitting you, or if it is not permitting you. So let's say suppose the question is being asked on land ownership, right? The question is based on land ownership. Now you can simply write about the land ownership in, let's say, Gupta period. This is the question. So while writing about this land ownership, you can do one thing, that towards the conclusion, when you are reaching to the conclusion, you can go for a comparison also, right? Such as this was not initially being followed, now it started happening in the Gupta period, or this element of Gupta period got changed later on. That's how you can put a kind of comparison of this continuity and change, and that could get some extra advantage in your answer. That is also one thing that you have to keep in mind. So in the body part, these are few things that you have to keep in mind, right? As I did discuss in the class, in the your past few minutes, that it should be structurized properly. There should be some keywords. There should be some concept. It should be conceptual. Like there should be some facts included here. Okay. Then historiography as per the requirement. And then it comes to, let's say, continuity and change, that element should be there. And finally it comes to the last aspect, that is about the conclusion. Okay, that is about the conclusion. Now when it comes to conclusion, in the conclusion, what exactly you are supposed to write? Sometimes people normally believe that there should be something really conclusive must be included in conclusion. I must tell you that in history nothing can be said, like not 100%, but in most of the times you can find that the things cannot be concluded in a way. Okay, the way it is happening probably in the other papers, right? It cannot happen in this in history. So when you say conclusion, like it's not necessarily that you're concluding the topic. Suppose if there is a debate and towards the end you have been reaching to any conclusion, that's not important. That's not necessary. So you can keep your answers open-ended, which actually highly possible in in history, right? So what is the meaning of open-ended answers? Like you are not concluding it finally this is what call as or this is how the things happen. You'll be writing either historians have reached to any conclusion, they are more or less there is a consensus among historians okay, probably this possibility is more for this particular dimension. In that case you can write it. If it is not there, in that case you'll be writing the historians have not reached to any as such conclusion so far, it still remains very debatable. That's how you can end the answer. Or else, as I did tell you, that sometimes the questions is if it is not question is basically about one dimension. Like suppose it has just now I've been giving you the example of, let's say, मैं उसका एग्जाम्पल दे रहा था कि लैंड ओनरशिप इन गुप्ता पीरियड. नाउ यू हैव बीन राइटिंग द लैंड ओनरशिप इन गुप्ता पीरियड, सो दैट यू कुड कनेक्ट विथ, लेट्स से, the later period or the previous period. You can talk about the continuity and changes, so that could be also there. If it is giving you permission to write something about, let's say, or connect it with, let's say, with the current scenario, such as you have been writing any answer on urbanization, right? Now if you have been writing any answer on urbanization, right, then it is highly possible for you that you can connect this urbanization with the modern urbanization or the modern cities. So sometimes you are getting the opportunity to link the answers or link the conclusion with the current scenario. Suppose you are writing any answer on the status of women, why don't you why can't it be concluded with the, let's say, with let's say the current scenario, or the current status of women. That's how, there might be multi-dimensional end of your answers, but don't try to finish it in such a way that you have just concluded this. So these are certain things that you need to remember while writing the answers. And as you can understand, this is specifically applied in paper 1. Like I'll come up with another session where I can where I'll discuss about the answer writing in paper 2, which is remarkably different. So these are few suggestions for paper 1 that you have to keep in mind, and you should try to follow it, because if you have been following it properly, in that case the result would be definitely better, right? So thank you all for joining the session. I'll come up with the next session when we'll discuss about paper 2 answer writing in paper 2, and then we'll go forward, right? Thank you very much.